Hello, my curious cats, and welcome back to another episode of the Psychology Podcast, the podcast for all the info on psychology's most questionable history. I'm your host, Leslie Lopez, PhD student and psychology nerd. Welcome to season 4, you guys! Oh my goodness, this is so exciting, okay? I can't believe we're already 4 seasons deep into this podcast. It feels like just yesterday I was just a girl with an idea, and today I'm a girl with an idea come to life. It's insane. Crazy how fast time flies, you know? Well, one thing's for certain, I love you guys too much to stop now, okay? So stick around because season 4 is going to be a doozy. Last season, we spent 10 episodes learning about some of the weirdest attempts in history to treat, or in some cases, cure mental illness. And let's be honest, there were some seriously questionable methods in there, including deep sleep therapy, electroconvulsive therapy, lobotomies, and so much more. Well, this season, we're taking a closer look at some of history's most questionable psychologists, the ones who made these experiments, starting with someone who wasn't only a psychologist, but also a political figure in the United States, quite the intertwine there. So, if you're a little bit insane in the membrane like me, get cozy-tozy, and let's jump into it. Also, y'all guys are gonna have to excuse the extremely comfortable lounge look. This is literally a sleeping shirt. I'm literally about to hop into bed right after I'm done recording this. I got home at 5 and then I worked on my dissertation for 5-6 hours straight. It is literally 11:30 on a Friday night. But I had to knock this episode out because it comes out on Monday and I'm just tired. And again, like I said, So just bear with me. All right, so Dr. Benjamin Rush. Although this is a psychology podcast, it is not possible to discuss Dr. Benjamin Rush without discussing his contributions to American politics. So just sit back and enjoy a little bit of American history here for a sec, okay? All right, so Dr. Benjamin Rush was many things throughout his lifetime, okay? He was a founding father, a civic leader in the state of Philadelphia, a physician, a professor of chemistry, politician, social reformer, humanitarian, educator, and the founder of Dickinson College. Phew, that is a busy man right there, okay? And good for him, okay? Because honestly, nowadays, all men do is complain and track protein, okay? Bring back real men. Good Lord, it's like an epidemic at this point, let's be honest. So Dr. Benjamin Rush was a leader of the American Enlightenment and an enthusiastic supporter of the American Revolution. He was prominent in many reforms, particularly in the areas of medicine and education. He opposed slavery, advocated for free public schools, and sought to improve education for women with a more enlightenment penal system. Just snaps all around, okay? Also, when historians say enlighten, I fully read it as today's media saying the word woke. Do you guys know what I mean? Do you hear it, right? Hey, so back then, Rush was considered an enlightened intellectual. A woke, if you would. He was committed to organizing all medical knowledge around explanatory theories rather than just relying on empirical methods. As a physician, Rush argued that illness was the result of imbalances in the body's physical system and was caused by malfunctions in the brain. He promoted public health by advocating clean environment and stressing the importance of personal and military hygiene. Again, snaps all around. That's enough on his political and overall achievements. We're here to learn about his contributions to modern psychology/psychiatry. He was indeed a pretty cool guy, and his studies into mental disorders made him one of the founders of American psychiatry, which, in my opinion, makes him an even cooler guy. In fact, in 1965, the American Psychiatric Association actually recognized Rush as the father of American psychiatry. Love that for him. So Rush actually had some very strong opinions about the human mind, which comes at no surprise given all his political contributions. In his book titled Medical Inquiries and Observations upon the Diseases of the Mind, he stated that hypochondrias, which we know today as depression, needed to be treated by, quote, direct and drastic interferences that involved assaulting the patient's mind and body in an attempt to reset their constitution, unquote. In layman's terms, we need to find a way to reset the human mind and body to bring it back to its factory settings. He had many theories on how to do this, and we're going to be focusing on his most infamous theories that gave him the title of Father of Modern Psychiatry. Alright, so first and foremost, Rush strongly believed in the power of bloodletting. Bloodletting is the removal of blood from a person's body with the intent to manage disease and health conditions. Rush recommended that doctors plumb patients' systems by bleeding, blistering, and cupping. The bleeding part was probably the most controversial one because his method of bleeding included the use of medical leeches. Some may say that Rush did take it a bit far to a certain point. When it came to bleeding, Rush's motto was go big or go home. In his book, he explains that, quote, I saw no inconvenience from the loss of a pint and even 20 ounces of blood at a time. I drew from many persons 70 and 80 ounces in 5 days and for a few much larger quantities, unquote. To put it into perspective, 20 ounces is the size of a Starbucks venti cup. And 80 ounces is equivalent to 2 Stanley cups. Okay, look, I've donated blood a few times and I get woozy just from the 1 pint. Okay, like I can't imagine 2 Stanley cup worth of blood in a week. Okay, like I'm a bit woozy when it comes to blood in general, so just thinking about that, oh my goodness, okay. Also, I feel like we grazed through his leeches method a bit too quick there, okay? So let's circle back to that. Leeching wasn't exactly new by the mid-1700s, which is when Rush was like alive and doing his little experiments. Like it's been around since ancient Egyptian times, and it's still a technique that some but some consider effective in treating certain diseases today. I could never. Honestly, just the thought of leeches gives me anxiety. Like just the way they look in itself is just gives me the creeps. It gives me the heebie-jeebies. Okay, like no. Also, like side note, if you're an American millennial, do you guys remember that one commercial where there's these like girls just like hanging out in the bathroom at their school and the camera pans to like a sink where there's all these leeches? I cannot for the life of me remember what that commercial was about, and like I googled it and nothing came up, but I do remember the sink specifically because it low-key traumatized me. Like it's engraved into my memory to this day, and I just thinking about it grosses me out. Like I can't, I'm sorry. Okay. And also like leeches, like do y'all remember that one scene from Game of Thrones? Again, and then we have the blistering, which is, as you could imagine, he would create blisters from like burning their body, like parts of their body, and bleed them out that way. And then also the cupping, which is similar to like the athletic cupping that we have today, you know, the one that Michael Phelps made famous, but like to a point where the bruises would kind of like pop. It's hard to explain. If you've ever done cupping, you can kind of sense it, right? Like you can sense, like it can get to a certain point where blood is like drawn. Okay, and like I've done cupping before because like I'm a bodybuilder, so I get like massages that include cupping. It's really good for your muscles and all that. But yeah, there's those 2 others. But okay, that was Benjamin Rush's bleeding techniques. To be fair, these techniques were more so used to treat physical diseases of the body, specifically yellow fever, but still, you know, yellow fever is known to cause a bit of hysteria in its victims, so it was, in a sense, helping out not only the physical, but also the mental disorder that came with the yellow fever. One thing about Rush is that he firmly believed in his reset theory, the one we talked about earlier that he quoted in his book saying that the body essentially needed to be reset back to its factory settings. Rush believed that one way to truly reset the body and mind to factory settings was by cleaning it out. Do we see where I'm going with this one? Rush called this technique purging with poison. Pretty self-explanatory, right? Well, Rush would prescribe his patients drugs like mercury, arsenic, and strychnine to induce vomiting and diarrhea. I mean, yeah, right? Like, except in modern medicine, these are all considered lethal poisons. Literally, he would be charged with capital murder today if he were to be using these techniques today. After Rush's patients would essentially vomit and shart everywhere, he prescribed them a 3-day fast, only adding to the agony, okay? And once the body was essentially cleaned out, like right after the 3-day fast, he recommended stimulants such as tea, coffee, ginger, and black pepper in abnormally large doses. I'm laughing because have y'all ever had an iced coffee on an empty stomach? If you know, you know, okay? It's how I stay skinny. That's neither here nor there, but if you know, you know. Okay, then after these patients were done with 3-day fast and their essentially iced coffee diarrhea, okay, these patients were prescribed magnesia and mustard rubs, both a natural laxative. Oh, but that's not all. After poison-induced vomit and diarrhea, a caffeine stimulant, and a natural laxative, these patients were prescribed daily hot baths to induce sweating immediately followed by cold baths. It is literally a murderous cocktail for your guts. I'm not even kidding. But to Dr. Benjamin Rush, this was pivotal. He was cleaning the body and resetting it to factory setting to rid of physical and mental diseases. I mean, sure, okay. Yeah, we have to remember this is the 1700s, okay, you guys? We only had so much information at our hands. So that was pretty insane, right? Like, we can all kind of agree on that, okay? The only thing is, like, that was more towards, like, physical ailments. There was some mental cleansing, if you would, in there, some, but most of what we just discussed was more towards, like, the physical cleansing of the body. Okay. Perhaps Rush's most interesting contribution to psychiatry was his theory that psychiatric illnesses were the result of a blocked circulation to the brain. I can potentially see this logic, okay? For the 1700s, I can potentially see it. Not sure if I follow it, but I see it, okay? And you'll see what I mean. So Rush believed that in order to improve blood flow to the brain, thus curing mental illness, the patient must somehow get rid of whatever it was that was blocking that circulation. He specifically targeted schizophrenic patients. Of course, no surprise there. To improve their brain flow, Rush created 2 chairs. You heard that right, chairs. The first chair he called the tranquilizing chair. In this chair, patients were sat, strapped, and their heads confined. Okay, their heads were confined to this like box-like contraction. The tranquilizer chair was supposed to control the flow of blood towards the brain and by lessening muscular action or reducing motor activity. Like, this was supposed to like reduce the force and frequency of the pulse to the brain. Like, in other words, by strapping the patients down and confining their heads to this like box, it was less strain on the brain. And because the head wasn't using as many muscles as it normally would if it were just like hanging free, therefore making room to unblock whatever circulation was being blocked. I want to say I see where the logic came from, but I'd be gaslighting myself if I'm being honest. Also, I am so sorry if I'm really bad at like description, but if you're watching on Spotify or YouTube, or if you go on my Instagram, the podcast Instagram, there will be pictures of the chairs. so you guys can get like a better picture. Okay, so now this second chair is my favorite, and you're about to see why. Rush's second chair at an attempt to cure mental illness was called the gyrating chair. The chair was more of a device resembling a merry-go-round, in which Rush would strap his patients, then spin them around until they became dizzy. And not just dizzy, I'm talking like close to vomiting dizzy. The spinning was supposed to rid of whatever circulation it was blocking, I guess more like to loosen things up there. There really isn't much else to it. And the logic behind this is actually, I kind of get it more than I do the previous chair. I'm not gonna lie. Please tell me y'all see it too, right? You spin someone around, the head kind of and it just kind of it loosens up whatever is blocking the circulation. I know you guys know what I mean. I know you guys get it, okay? And if you look at the pictures of each of his chairs, you can't help but laugh, because also you have to remember, like I said multiple times already, this is the 1700s, and this is a century, okay, before Pavlov, before Freud, before Skinner, before Jung, before really any of our most infamous breakthroughs in the field of psychology and psychiatry. So props to him for actually trying, really. Now, of course, it is not always rainbows and butterflies in the field of psychology, and we know that. Rush's experiments, particularly the bleeding and poisons, did lead to the death of many patients. There is not an explicit number to the number of deaths caused by Rush's experiments, but even if it were just the one, it's more than enough to consider any experiment invalid. Also, any other political figure, he did have his few controversies throughout his career. But this is a psychology podcast, not an American history podcast. Dr. Benjamin Rush lived a very interesting life. It doesn't even sound like one single life. This man lived many lives in his existence. There really is so much more to his existence, but like I said, I speak for psychology, not American history. If you'd like to learn more on the amazing lives of Benjamin Rush, by all means. I know I found myself in a bit of a rabbit hole while researching for this episode, so I wouldn't blame ya if you go down Google and just Dr. Benjamin Rush and just stay up all night. Well, my curious cats, thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode. A bit of a different take, okay? Some new angles that I'm happy to bring to the table. Each new episode for season 4 will feature some of history's more controversial psychologists, which I could go on for days and even weeks diving into each of these rabbit holes. But for today, if you enjoyed today's episode, please remember to follow, subscribe, and share on YouTube, Spotify, Instagram, and Apple Podcasts. As always, citations will be in the description if you want to check those out. Stay blessed, stay sane, and stay psyched. I love you. Bye.